There's such a fear around hiring people and bringing team on and scaling, and rightly so, like it's a big expense from you, the business owner. But I think that the other thing is that if you create the right environment for that team, it just frees you up to do so much more amazing things, and you get so much more support and encouragement as well.
Hi, and welcome to the Your Story Studios podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things content creation. And today on the show, I'm joined by Matt, and today we're going to be talking about leading a successful video production team. Matt, how do you do that?
A lot of stress. No, it's good. It's good. It's one of the things that I think a lot of video production people, I was going to say production company, but that's where you're going to. People starting out in this industry see as the dream, right? It's like having a team, having an office and a studio and things. And it's definitely, I think, not for everybody. It takes a real commitment to the people you're working with and a real, there's plenty of ways of leading, but from my perspective, you need to authentically and truly 100% give a crap about them. Like you can't do it otherwise. So yeah, we got a team of 5. Everybody says it's like family, but they truly are like the extension of my own family. So I've got 2 young boys, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And a big non-negotiable for me is being able to be there at drop-off and pick up at daycare. So I drop the kids off and I might roll into the office at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then I'll leave anywhere between 4 o'clock, 4:30 to go pick them up again. And the team understand that and can facilitate anything that happens outside of that. It's one small element of it, but it's really, I wanted this lifestyle for myself and my home life to be one thing. And so having a team to be able to leverage in those situations and be able to do the things that I want to do is a really big part of that. But you need buy-in of the team and investment in the team to be a part of that, because you don't want them to see you leaving at 4 o'clock and resent you, the boss who's buggering off to go home. It's like you need to create a culture and an environment that everybody feels a part of and is valued in. Really big pride point in my life that the team as it stands is as amazing as they are.
Awesome. How did you start building your team?
Yeah, so like most people, I started out as a sole trader, as a single videographer doing everything. And you reach a point where capacity is an issue, right? Like there's only so many hours in a day. The biggest time-consuming element is post-production. It's editing. And it's one of the things I found I was good at, but I often found I was getting interrupted by other things. So you might have a client call about a new project, or you're organizing a shoot and trying to deal with other crew or whatever it is. And so just that continuity of time in an edit was getting lost, and I was seeing the projects, sort of suffer because of it. So I brought on a contractor editor early days, and this, I won't give you timelines because I'll confuse it all, but many, many years ago. And it was on a project by project base. So it was like, hey, here's this thing. This is the rate I'm charging the client. I want to charge you this. Does it work? So you're taking a profit margin on it. And it was really good because you've got somebody you trust that knows you and your brand and your style as a company, but also frees up so much more of your time. And where I see a lot of kind of scaling team start to fall over is when you get that time back, what are you doing with it, right? So you can easily go, cool, they're doing an edit, and just kick back, play PlayStation, do whatever, or you go, no, I've got all this time back. What can I use to propel the business forward? Can I do some higher value projects or tasks that is going to bring more business in? Can I do some more marketing material? Can I do some more outreach and conversations? Can I get out there and have meetings? Like all of this stuff, you're essentially buying your time back by paying somebody else. It needs to be really considered. And so we hired an editor. Then once that got to a point where we were sort of busy enough again, and I was handling too much of the production management side of things, we brought on a producer. And so again, that just frees up all this extra time that I liked the creative side of things. I loved briefing in clients, coming up with concepts and sort of developing all of the storyboards and mood boards and stuff. But the logistics of booking crew, scheduling, all of that stuff, it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. And we had the kind of regularity of work that became somebody's job. It was really easy for them to do. I was really fortunate at the time that lady I worked with, Hayley, was really keen on part-time work. And so we started quite easy at 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, which meant that there was a touch point that everybody could go through, and it was an understanding that these hours were always going to be fulfilled by her, but also wasn't a full-time commitment from my end to pay that salary or from her. But it was an agreement to say, hey, we want this role to grow with you and your responsibilities in 6 to 12 months. And so I guess coming back to the first thing I said about finding the right people and the buy-in into what you're doing and the culture. I'm a really big fan of vulnerability and transparency. I think that particularly in a small business, everybody's such a crucial pillar to the organization that you take one of them away, the whole thing can fall over. What benefit is there to withholding or kind of keeping things close to your chest if you can say, hey, I can't pay you a full-time wage, but I want to grow your role into full-time. I can only do 20 hours a week instead of 40, but here's the plan I want to put in place. Here's how I want to support you. What do you want? Have that conversation and then work together to grow that. You're in such a better place because there's so much trust and understanding there and responsibility placed on both parties too, to say, I want to see your role grow and here's what I'm committing to you that I want to see in 6 to 12 months. And if the other person you're talking to is like, yeah, I actually really want to do more directing down the line, and go, cool, well, that's maybe how we can grow this role and we can sort of work together to move there. And so that was, a couple of years ago. And then through the pandemic and things, the team makeup changed and it was all very amicable, but people went and did different things. And probably, I think, end of 2021, start of 2022, the team as it stands today started forming. So basically everybody has been around for 2 to maybe 3 years now. And it's just like a really solid team where myself as the director and creative director of the company, we've got a production manager, a full-time editor, a full-time DOP, and our part-timer who we call him the content whiz. So he does a bit of everything. It's a bit of editing, bit of shooting, bit of production management and production assisting. It's so clear that everybody has such strengths and such buy-in to what they're doing and such value in the company from my point of view. I'm going to put myself on a ledge here and say that I don't think anybody, if they were put in this seat and asked if they had a good boss and a good company they worked for, would say anything but Matt's incredibly supportive and we love working at Balloon Tree. And I genuinely mean, it's one of the things I'm the most proud of because not only am I able to create a business and support my own family, but I'm supporting their families and they don't have kids or wives or anything yet, but it's like they've got partners, they've got lives, they've got passions outside of work. And I'm able to create a environment where they feel valued and really a strong part of what we're creating. But also there is flexibility in that if they want that. There's career progression. I have their best interests at heart and I'm not just crushing them into oblivion, going, do the work and whatever. They're such a part of the company that they know it would all fall over without them, and they should know that because they should feel valued. My first job, I mentioned in our previous episode about the real estate video company, one of the reasons I left was I was handed a sort of end-to-end production management job where they went, here's the client, here's the project, you look after it, you do a good job, there's a reward in it at the end of it for you. I was like, this is awesome. What a cool thing. I'm 20 years old, how cool. And I busted my butt. I did as much work as I could, delivered it. The client was stoked. I get called into the boss's office and they're like, hey, Matt, you did a great job. Here's a $50 JB Hi-Fi voucher. See you later. I just remember it's the biggest deflating feeling where you're like, my value that I'm giving to you is not being received and understood and recognized. Even if it was no monetary exchange or whatever, just the recognition did not match up with what I had perceived. And that to this day is one of the greatest lessons in leadership because I never want to do that to my team. And even if, we can't make an amazing Christmas party because, we don't have a whole lot of money in the bank or something, I'll always show up and tell them, be honest and open about it and give as much of the value that they deliver back to them in ways that I can at that time. There's years where we can do amazing, amazing things and then there's quieter years, but never should it be doubted that I have everybody's best interests at heart and value what they contribute to the business.
Yeah, that's great. And that's going to keep that team together because you don't want people just coming and going. And in this modern age, I think a lot of people, they come to a job and their mindset is, I'll stick around for 12 months and if I like it, maybe 2 years and then off to the next thing.
Yeah.
But as a business owner, no, you want them to be there for the long haul.
Yeah.
So it's great to hear how you've got those strategies to keep people because you care about them.
Yeah. And even so Ben, our DOP, I've known Ben for almost 15 years or so. So we'd hire him a lot as a contractor back in the day where he was freelancing. But he, I think just before the pandemic, went and worked for CUB. So big, Carlton United Breweries, right? Big company, good wage, but a lot of red tape, a lot of meetings, lots of whatever. And he was there for a couple of years. And I remember when we were looking at our numbers going, I think we could bring on a full-time shooter here. Like we've got you do the numbers on it, it makes sense. But so I called Ben and was just like, hey mate, like, are you happy at your job? He's like, oh yeah, it's all right. It's all right. And I was like, well, look, this is kind of what we've got going here. I don't know what they're paying you, but here's what we can offer. Pretty sure it's going to be less than what CB can pay. But here's all of the outside benefits. You've got ownership over the role. You can blah, 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 blah. And I think it took him about a day to come back and go, let's do it. And like, I don't want to speak for Ben at how happy he is with wages and stuff like that, but I know that it's a significant drop in revenue or wages for him, but it's the value that he's seen, by being as part of this company is so much higher than he was just a number and a little cog in the massive machine over there. So, I think it's like, there's such a fear around hiring people and bringing team on and scaling, and rightly so. Like it's a big expense from you, the business owner. But I think that the other thing is that if you create the right environment for that team, it just frees you up to do so much more amazing things, and you get so much more support and encouragement as well. So my role, like I'm barely on the tools these days. Like I love going out on shoots as a director and a producer, but I don't shoot, I don't edit. I'm predominantly like sales and marketing and conversations and creative direction on stuff. And I can only do that because the team are so good at actually executing the stuff that we do. And there's so much trust and responsibility given to them, and they love it. Ben loves shooting. It's the thing he just wants to do. And I'm like, great, take the project, do what you need to do, and I'll like tick it off at certain milestones. Rob's our incredible editor and post-production wizard, and he's created systems and training and onboarding for new people. And so it's such a thrill to see them all thrive in their own little roles, but also means that I can step away and go, cool, we're a big business, or let's do big business thinking here now. What's the direction? Where's the industry going? What's AI going to do? And I can sit there and think on it rather than going, I'm in Premiere trying to figure out a thing and setting up a camera for a shoot tomorrow.
Yeah, you're in too many headspaces.
Yeah, team just gives you that freedom to be able to deploy yourself in a really intentional way.
And the team that you have today, how did you recruit all of them? You mentioned that you knew some of them, but is everyone just someone that you've worked with in the past, or did you go into seek.com.au and post something?
Yeah, we've never run a job ad through Seek, and I know a bunch of other production companies that have done so successfully. Yeah, Ben, like I said, had known for years, and I was just like, he gets it. He will just slot straight in. Rob and Majai, our editor and content whiz, are recommendations from past employees. So as part of their handoff, Mary, our previous editor, was like, she blew up on TikTok, and like, good on her. She's doing amazing things. And so had all these other opportunities, needed to move on. I'm like, well, cool, you're amazing, but we need to replace you. And she's like, you should talk to this guy, Rob. And then we just sort of handed over, and it worked out really smoothly. With Chase, it was really interesting where she's our production manager. And during the pandemic, I studied at Deakin. I went back to Deakin virtually and did a talk to the second year students. So they were like, this is amazing lecturer, Liz Bolch, if anybody's heard of her.
I went to Deakin, I know Liz.
She's amazing. Like one of
she was a reference for my first job.
Great. Yeah. I mean, like she, unbelievable. In fact, little side note, one of the most formative parts of my education there was the live TV studio unit.
Deakin TV.
And nobody wanted to be the producer. And I was like, well, I'll produce, like I'll figure it out, whatever. I remember we did the first live run before the recording, and I think we were like 4 minutes over or something. And she looked at me, she's like, Matt, you're 4 minutes over. And I was like, cut this, cut that, bang, bang, bang. And then she just looked at me and went, Matt, you'll be a producer one day. And like that's just burnt into my soul, like such a formative thing. So anyway, I owe a lot to Liz and her guidance. But anyway, so she asked me to come back and speak to the second year students, and she's like, you had a film in MIFT this year and blah, blah, blah. Like, let's have a chat to the students about the career. I remember in that, all of the cameras were off except for 2 or 3, and one of them was Chase. And she asked a couple of questions, and then once I got off that class, she sent me a message on LinkedIn and was just like, hey, Matt, I'd love to just connect with you. Really enjoyed the chat. In my head, I was like, earmarked her as like, she's clever. Like there's initiative here, and there's the go-getter attitude that you can't teach. You can teach processes and systems. You can teach the way a business does something, but it's the attitude at which you bring to a business that is kind of the intangible special sauce of everybody. And so I think probably 3 or 4 months later, it was the new year, 2021, where she reached out again and was just like, hey, I need an internship for my course. I'm like, great, come on in. Mondays every week for 10 weeks or whatever it was. And that conversation just turned into, well, I think we're going to need to replace Haley at the end of this year. Do you want to just keep interning and onboarding and stuff? And so she just like, go get her, put her hand up, was there, was keen, had the right attitude, and is now like an absolute weapon in the business. Like, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying she's young. I think she's 23, but is like, acts like a seasoned pro that's been doing this for 20 years, like is just so switched on. And again, it's one of those things where like hiring people, being aware of who's around you and kind of keeping tabs sounds a bit, sus, but like, just being aware of the people in your orbit that are around and knowing that there's good talent out there that maybe you're not ready to bring them on in a full-time capacity or something. But if the right person shows up at the right time, like how can you embrace them and bring them into your ecosystem? Because I think if you then get to a point where you're like, all right, we're going to go out to seek or whatever, sure, you might find a good candidate, but you're kind of limiting yourself to that position. Whereas if you go, hey, I've been keeping an eye on Steve. Steve's been doing some really cool stuff and now I need an editor. You reach out, have the conversation. It's like all of a sudden it's just a faster into making that work because you've already sort of understood a bit of the personality around it, but also you kind of know what you're after and can see them fit that rather than going, cool, I've got 20 different applicants. How does this work? And you try them all on. Finding people is kind of just going to open mind a little bit, be very ready to sort of just see where a little trail follows, I guess.
Yeah, cool. You've already touched on this a little bit, but what does a typical week look like for you today?
Yeah. So it's very up in the air. It does depend on what's going on, but a lot of my time is spent in meetings, conversations, or proposals and developing ideas. So every day we have what we call the climb, which is we're Balloon Tree Productions. We climb to the top of the tree. We all look out at what's going on, then we climb back down, do the work. So it's a half hour.
That's what the name means.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into the whole where Balloon Tree came from, but the climb is like our little team whip in the morning where it's sort of like, here's all the projects. What are we doing today? Cool, let's get it done. I usually check in on a Monday and a Friday, but the rest of the week is run by the team. And mostly because I don't need to be in the day-to-day operations. We use Basecamp as a project management software. And so inside that, there's every project we've got and there's like little attached chats and things that I get notified on stuff or people will tag me. So if things pop up, I can look at it and address it. So if an edit's done, I can give feedback on it. Or if there's a question about, hey, this shoot's coming up, what's the blah, 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 like all of that I can weigh in on if I need to. So I've kind of got visibility across everything, but I'm not in there constantly doing, and having those conversations. And then it's often, it's either making content or thinking about producing content for our own marketing material, trying to tee up meetings or following up and nurturing conversations. So a big part of now I've kind of built this machine that's like, if I reach out to you and go, hey, Nathan, how's things? And yeah, cool, mate. Don't really have anything right now. Maybe in 6 months' time, I'll pop it in Basecamp, pop it in the calendar. So in 6 months' time, I've just remembered, hey, Nathan, what's going on? Over time, that just sort of, you end up with hundreds and hundreds of those conversations that pop up. So I sort of follow up on those. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of just LinkedIn stuff. It's commenting on other people's posts, responding to messages, sending out messages, whatever it might be.
And we'll do a future episode on that.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn so much. And then it's meetings and proposals and creative development. So if we have a client that wants to do something, I'll either go there in person, we'll have a conversation online, and then through that work with whoever in our team makes the most sense to talk through and develop that. So if it's a really heavy post job, Rob and I might take half an hour, 45 minutes to run through the brief, come up with some options, figure out how long it's going to take. I'll put together a proposal and a quote, send that off. It might be Chase and one of the team doing it if it's a sort of known quantity. But really I'm focused on new business and bringing in new conversations and new work. And anything bigger than kind of like a 10K budget, I'm much more involved in terms of the direction of it and what it would look like as far as an execution.
And do you find that's where your passion lies these days, is doing those types of projects as opposed to being behind a camera or at the editing suite?
100%. Yeah, I've always loved the collaboration side of it. So like I was a good shooter, I was a good editor, but I was never the best or the most passionate about it. I was never the like gearhead that was like, oh my God, it's all these pixels and da, da, da. It was like, I liked it. You can make some fun stuff, but it was never me. And so having a team that just, have those specialty areas and really love that stuff. I love being able to just, facilitate their area of expertise and go crazy, do what you need to do here. And honestly, like, I've said it before about it's such a point of pride about having an amazing team, but working with that team is one of the best things as well. It's like being able to delegate and see other people thrive with stuff. Like, I've never had a real hoarder mentality or like me, I have to take credit on everything. Like, I'm the first person to champion the team to a client if I've done nothing. One of my favorite emails to send is usually like a new client that I might not be as involved in once we sort of close the sale is the handoff email that's just like, hey, Nathan, so good, so excited to work with you on this project. I'm going to introduce you to Chase. She's so much better at this than I am and far more organized. You're going to have a great time dealing with her. I'll check in throughout the thing, but blah, 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 blah. And like that, I love that because it's self-deprecating, but it introduces the team, gives them an opportunity to then take over. But also then the client gets that expectation of like, oh, it's not just Matt. There's like systems and processes and people behind the scenes here. And so it's honestly, it's the collaboration side of it that I love the most. And even I look at like all of the marketing stuff and all of the meetings and pitching and stuff. That's like the sweet spot. It's people and it's working with clients. It's not selling. It's going, how do we solve this problem that you've got going on? And that's the juice that I really like squeezing out. I don't mind getting behind a camera every now and then, but it's like if I can just have cool conversations with people and talk about making fun stuff, like I'm so happy. Yeah.
Awesome. And to finish off today's episode, how do we have the perfect work-life balance?
I think I'm still working it out. So I don't want to sit and go, I've figured it out, everybody. But I think knowing what your priorities are and really making them a non-negotiable is a big one. So for me, it's being with my kids mornings and nights where possible. And sometimes that's not the case if you're interstate, if you've got a big shoot or whatever it is. But 9 times out of 10, if I'm not going, cool, I'm dropping the kids off in the morning and I'm there to pick them up and be there for dinner time, bath time, bedtime, I know something's not quite aligned. And so the same goes for the way I conduct myself with the team is that like I don't expect anybody to work overtime and do all these extra hours, or if somebody has a later shoot, I'm not going to be like, cool, just show up at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Like it's time in lieu, it's make sure it all works. It's setting priorities and really being, really strict on them, because if you don't prioritize it, nobody else is going to do it for you. Particularly like growing a family. And I know, like you have a couple of kids and they're such incredible time suckers, but also you miss out on so much so quickly that if you don't prioritize being present and there for it, you'll look back in a couple of years and you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm so glad I did all that extra work, but now my kids are, whatever. And you've missed all of that really amazing time with them. So prioritizing it and really being strict on prioritizing that, making it a non-negotiable, I think is the big thing. And also like there's a real mentality of imposter syndrome, I think, with that too. Like, again, I mentioned before, like I leave the office around 4 o'clock most days, and there's still a part of me that goes, oh, who am I to leave at 4 o'clock? Everybody is still working and doing more hours here. But at the same time, like I built this business over 13 years. Like if I'm not able to enjoy what that has created and the teams there able to do the things without me there, like what's the point? You're then working for your business. The business isn't working for you. So yeah, like I said, prioritizing what's important to you is the key to finding whatever that work-life balance is, because otherwise nobody's going to stand up and champion it for you. You've got to do it for yourself.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Matt, for sharing all those thoughts today on the Your Story Studios podcast.
Absolute pleasure.